In this video, you will learn about shortage, surplus, price floors, and ceilings. The terms we will use today: a shortage is when our quantity supplied is less than our quantity demanded. During COVID, we had a shortage of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Think masks, gowns for hospitals. And then following Christmas, and into January, we still have a shortage on PlayStation 5 consoles. Typically, you'll see some shortages pop up when new products come out or when we have really high demand, for example, around Christmas. A surplus is when we have too much of a good. The opposite scenario, where quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. When this occurs, we have more goods left over on the shelves than people desire to buy. So we have extra stuff left over. Price controls are when the government comes in and instead of allowing the market to decide what that equilibrium price is, they decide what the maximum or minimum price is that is different than the equilibrium price. If the government decides that they want a price that is higher than the equilibrium, that's what we call a price floor. The price floor, which is typically denoted with a little f, will be greater than what would have been the equilibrium price. A price ceiling is a legal maximum, and usually denoted with a little c, and that is when it is below the equilibrium price. So let's see what this looks like. Here, first step is to find the equilibrium price if the government has not intervened. That happens where supply equals demand, right here in the center, where they intersect, come over, and we have an equilibrium price of $1.40. Come down, we have an equilibrium quantity at 600. Now, if we were to end up with a price that is below the equilibrium, say at $1.20, when we come over, the first thing that we hit is supply. And it tells us that we have a quantity supplied, and it looks like, let's just call it 550. And then we keep going over, and we hit the demand line. We see quantity demanded would be 700. And at this price of 120, our quantity supplied is 550 and our quantity demanded is 700. So we know that quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded, and that's what we call a shortage. So our shortage occurs when the quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded. If we had the opposite scenario, where price is above equilibrium, say at $1.80, we come over until we hit, now, demand line first, come down, and we see at this price of 180, a quantity demanded first at 500. And then we come over and get to quantity supplied, come down. This quantity supplied looks like it's about 690. And it's the opposite. Now quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. And this is what we call a surplus. So a surplus is when quantity supplied is the largest, and then a shortage is when quantity demanded is the largest. And these are the problems that we see if price ceiling or price floor are different than the market equilibrium. In this example, we're looking at a price ceiling. Remember that the price ceiling is setting a maximum price. So here we see the price ceiling is at 500. When you see multiple demand or supply lines, you just start at the lowest number first and then work your way up. So our first equilibrium is here at E0 with D0 and S0. And we see that the price ceiling is the same as the equilibrium price. So nothing's going to change. But if demand were to increase, and that's what we see from D0 to D1, a demand increase, we get a new equilibrium at E1. Come over, we have a equilibrium price at 600, and then an equilibrium quantity at 17. Now in this scenario, if we still have a price ceiling at 500, price will try to come up, but then it gets stopped at 500. So when we come over from here and we hit the first line that we hit, it's going to be S0, come down, and we see QS is going to be 15. Come over, and we see that quantity demanded for that QD1 is 19. Thus, when we have a price ceiling equal to $500 and it is below the equilibrium price, it's going to create a shortage because our quantity supplied is 15, QD1 is 19, and thus we have our shortage. Now, if the price ceiling was, let's say, for example, above equilibrium, let's say PC was 900, price would keep coming up, and then it would just stop at the equilibrium. And thus, any price ceiling that is above equilibrium price has no effect. It only matters if our price ceiling is below market equilibrium. Another place that you can see this is with some government-funded housing, where the rent prices have a price ceiling, and thus they have to come up with some other mechanism besides price to discern who gets to rent the government-subsidized housing. Now let's look at the price floor. A price floor is denoted as PF. Notice it is above our equilibrium price. Our equilibrium price here at E0 with demand and supply, we come over at P0 and Q0. These are our equilibriums. Now, if we were to have a price floor that is above the equilibrium, price is trying to come down, hits the floor, stops here, and we come over from the price floor. We notice we hit the demand line first. So we have this QD, and notice the quantity demanded is less than what we had at equilibrium, and is also less than when we come over and hit the supply line, come down, our quantity supplied. Now we don't have any numbers here, but we do not know that the origin is in the bottom left corner of this graph. And the closest variable to 0 is going to be the smallest number. So we can just throw some random numbers on here. It doesn't really matter, just as long as the one closest to 0 is the smallest and the one furthest away from 0 is the largest. So we can say that's 10 and 20, and the equilibrium here is 15. And same with the price. We can say price was at $5 and the price floor is 7. We see that the price floor is further away from 0 than the equilibrium, so we know that it must be a larger number, which is greater than 5. So in this scenario, when we have a price floor, that price floor is greater than the equilibrium price, and when this occurs, our quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied, and this gives us then a surplus. To review, a price ceiling, when it is below equilibrium price, gives us a shortage, And our price floor, when it is above equilibrium price, gives us a surplus. And you have just learned shortage, surplus, price ceilings, and floors.